Welcome in the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are back. We're here on a new channel, and you can't teach that. Bada boom. Man of the people in the room, Grant. Welcome into Ride the Line. And I'll say this. Are you riding this morning?
Tanner, it's the first video on the new channel, so of course I am riding. I'm riding into the national championship game on Monday, just like I was riding with the ladies yesterday. Don't know why they scheduled the game for 3 o'clock, put it in prime time, but hey, they set an all-time viewing record, so more power to them. And we've been talking about it. This is one of the busiest times of the year in the sports world. Well, it's starting to come to the close a little bit, but still, we're here to enjoy it while we can.
Yeah, it should be an interesting night. We have the national championship. We're going to recap a little bit of what happened in the women's national championship game, also talk about some news around the sports world. But before we get into all that, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys. It's brand new. We're trying to grow it, so a subscribe would really be appreciated. Also, like, comment, put the bell on for notifications. Do everything that all these YouTubers tell you to do on this channel, and we will be good to go.
Yeah, 100%. Bell, subscribe, like, comment, share, save, download. I'm trying to think of all the functions you can do on YouTube. Just do it all. It doesn't matter what it is. If you dislike it, hey, it happens. Just press some buttons, see what happens.
Definitely. So we got the Final Four tonight. The national championship game, UConn versus Purdue. UConn is a 6.5-point favorite currently. Some books like ESPN opened at 7.5, but I think that's because they got it out late. I know DraftKings opened at 5.5. I think that 6.5 to 7.5 point sweet spot is where we're going to land. It wouldn't surprise me personally if we got up to 7.5 by the opening tip, just because UConn has covered in 11 straight tournament games. They're beating everyone into submission. But right now, that's what the number we got. The total is currently set at 145.5. UConn's minus 300 on the money line. Purdue is plus 240. So Grant, looking at this game, just big picture, what are you looking at?
Yeah, so I had the chalk last week. I had Purdue and I had UConn winning and covering, so it was not a surprise for me to see those results. Ultimately, in this game, I feel that it just, with any game, if there's a team that's going to beat UConn, it's going to be UConn. There's not a single team in the country that can beat UConn if they play their game. Now, if it's going to take like the Connecticut, excuse me, already thinking about a topic we got coming up later on. Connecticut has to go like 10% from 3-point land. They've got to not play defense. They've got to not try. And, you know, I don't even give a damn about the efficiency or their execution or anything. If there's one thing that a Hurley coach team is going to do, so they're going to run. They're going to give you their best effort. And as long as they do that, I don't see this team losing. They're so much better than every team. And it's honestly not because they have amazing personnel. I mean, their players are very good. Don't get me wrong. But just the way that they blend things together, their coaching, their discipline, their intensity, their effort, and their belief, everything is just off the chart when you look at it. Everything is elite. Prior to last game, they were shooting, I believe, 28% from 3 in the tournament, and they still had not won by fewer than 17 points. Like think about that. They were dominating every team without the 3-point shot. So yes, Purdue is a very good team, and they've got a guy in Zach Edey who has won back-to-back Player of the Year awards. And despite that, they are still an excellent 3-point shooting team. They shoot better. They shoot close to 41% from 3, but none of it matters. UConn is just clearly better than them. They're clearly better than everybody.
Yeah, looking through the box score from the Alabama game, UConn shot 40% from the 3-point line. It wasn't pretty like that till the end of the game. Like the first half, they were terrible from 3. They were still in it. Alabama shot. They were fantastic in the first half, at least shooting the basketball, and then kind of cooled down in the second half. But the thing I learned watching that game, and I've seen it time and time again, like watching UConn throughout the entire tournament, you know this, but I saw it against Alabama because Alabama probably came out and played one of their best possible games. Until the second half, they did fall apart. But you need to be perfect, flawless for 40 minutes to beat Connecticut. If you're not, you have no chance of winning because UConn is going to run the floor. They're going to make plays and they're going to go on runs. And if you can't sustain their runs and shut them down and be able to score with them, you have absolutely no chance. So Alabama, they did look really good in the first half. The second half, they only came out, scored 32 points. The game stayed under the total. Alabama didn't hit that threshold. I believe they're undefeated or only lost one game when they've hit 80 points. So UConn did exactly what they need to do. They were physical down low with Donovan Clingan, and that's going to be the big storyline tonight, Clingan versus Edey. So how are you looking for this matchup to play out, Grant?
Well, I think Clingan has as good of a chance of stopping Edey as anybody, really. Particularly, obviously his size, being 7'2", certainly helps, but his defensive instincts and his intensity level and his willingness also to run the floor. I think that's a huge thing that people don't think about is when you're taking on a dominant big man, you're not going to stop them. So you have to try to make them uncomfortable. One of the ways to do that is to wear them down. And of course, that does mean going body to body in the post, but it means sprinting up and down the court. Make them chase you, make them get those tired legs, heavy arms, bump into them, give them some bruises. And Clingan's going to be able to do that. And just looking back at his last game, like Clingan in that second half was a perfect representation of this UConn team. UConn is like, they're like playing Derrick Henry in a snow game in the winter. Like it might start off even, but by the end of the game, they just beat on you and they wear you down. And eventually they will force you to succumb to them. And Alabama, to your point, played an incredible game. I think what Oates has done there at Alabama is really impressive as far as their efficiency and adopting the pro style of, layups and threes. Some people might call it boring. I say it's efficiency. There are more efficient ways to do anything and everything in life. Alabama's just figured that out better than pretty much any team in college basketball as far as their shot selection. But even that didn't matter. Like, again, UConn, they're just better than everybody. And it goes down to their schemes, their intensity level, their chemistry, everything. They're just clearly better. So back to your point, Clingan does have a big task with Edey in his hands, but even if Edey goes for 20 and 15, I still think this is UConn's game to lose.
Yeah, I think Edey is going to get the better of Clingan tonight. I think Clingan's a much better athlete, and that's why obviously the NBA is looking at Clingan, not necessarily Edey as much, just because of his athleticism, his ability to move. But I do think we're going to see Edey kind of win that battle down low. I don't think it's going to be enough. The biggest thing for Clingan, looking at my perspective from this game, he needs to stay out of foul trouble. If he stays out of foul trouble, he can let Edey have what he wants, but UConn's good enough in the supporting cast to wear Purdue down. I think this is going to be a close game for about 30 minutes, and I think in the final 10 minutes, we're really going to see UConn show up and put them away because Purdue's going to cool down. And it could be a blowout a lot quicker. It wouldn't surprise me because it's UConn, but I have UConn covering the spread tonight. There's no doubt about it. One guy that I want to talk about, though, Stephon Castle, 21 points, 7 of 13 from the field. Alabama just pissed him off. They angered him. They left him open, gave him a lot of open looks. He knocked him down, and it really brought a new level to his offense. I think him getting going offensively, which has not happened a lot this season. He's been very good on defense, really good freshman, obviously one of the best freshmen in the country. But him getting open on offense just totally helped the rest of the team when they were having a bad day. And that's why UConn's so good, because everyone is so good. What'd you see from him?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like what I saw from him was what I saw from this team over the course of the year. You do have your players who are bigger than name, but everybody on this team steps up. And on some night, it's going to be this guy's turn. Some night, like Tristan Newton might lead the charge, and then it's going to be Clingan, then it's going to be Castle, and it's all these different guys. They have contributors at every level, and that's hard to find sometimes in the NBA. Like sometimes you're watching and you can say, okay, well, this is the guy that we're going to help off of on offense because he's not a threat to do a whole lot. You see it in the college basketball all over the place. Like there are going to be 5 players on the court. 2 of them might not be able to score. They might not be able to pass. They might not even be real threats on offense. A lot of times they'll just go stand on the block and grab a rebounder. They'll go stand in the corner, don't get involved. That's not UConn. That's not what they do. Everybody is a real threat offensively and defensively out there. So to your point, Castle was great in the last game, but I'm not looking at him or counting on him in this game. As long as Clingan stays out of foul trouble, like you said, I think UConn can just overwhelm this team. And you know what? Maybe it doesn't happen early. Like you said, UConn isn't necessarily a great first half team, as weird as it sounds, because they've been so dominant. But by that second half, they're just going to get to you. It is what it is. I like UConn. I got them winning and covering. So does the public, and so do the Sharps. Like everybody is just fully backing UConn.
Yeah, nobody's going against UConn in this spot. And I have my fears with Purdue too, watching how they played NC State. Like NC State was horrendous. NC State played one of the worst possible games you could have played in the tournament. And if Purdue faced a good team in those first 20 minutes, they would have been put away early. And also NC State, the one thing they did was a fantastic job of defending Edey. Like they were stripping him like crazy. They were coming down. He did not know what to do. Still had 20 points. It was his lowest output of the tournament, though. So they did a good job there. I think Dan Hurley is going to learn from that and just totally find a way to get the job done tonight for the Huskies. Score prediction time, Grant. We're going because we got to make this interesting. So we both have UConn covering. I'm on the under. I wouldn't play the under, but I'm on the under. So that means my score prediction has got to stay under. So at 145, give me 77 UConn to 62 Purdue.
Wow. So you got them win by 15.
Got them winning by 15. It's hard not to. They've beaten everybody by that much. That's the smart prediction at this point.
My prediction actually isn't that far away. I'm gonna say UConn 77, Purdue 69.
Okay. All right. So we're in that same boat. No matter what, we got UConn covering 77-69. That still hits the under, right? No.
What was the line again?
145 and a half. I'm not a math
77
guy.
to 69. No, that would be just over.
Okay.
Just over.
Now, I know that sounds a little crazy when you're a sports bettor, you're not a math guy. But with that being said, I'm not like a hardcore math guy. I can still add up. I learned I wasn't going to be a math guy in freshman calculus. I wanted to be like a trader or something, like a Wolf of Wall Street kind of guy. And then I couldn't do calculus, so I just gave up on that dream. So,
freshman year of college, right?
Yeah, freshman year of college.
I was going to say, you're taking calculus as a freshman. Maybe you should have been a freshman in high school. Maybe you should have been a math guy.
No, I'd never taken calculus, and I failed the class. Not failed. I should have failed it, but I sucked up to the teacher, so I think she gave me a C. I got caught cheating that semester. Bunch of football players. We all answered like question 6 wrong, exactly wrong, and the number was like so wild. So that was just we pinned ourselves in the hole there, but we survived.
I remember I was taking a test back in high school, and we used to sit in desk clusters of 4. I don't know if you guys ever did that, but like groups of 4. And so a desk cluster decided to cheat off one another. And the person, I guess they didn't choose very wisely who they were going to cheat off of, because the person right here got a 38% and then the rest of them copied. So they all got 38% on the test. And the teacher said, I should punish you, but I'm not going to. A 38% is punishment enough.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I got a 0, and then I had to, I don't know, write a letter or something and then deal with all that mumbo jumbo from the school. So yeah, cheating's not fun. Don't cheat.
Don't cheat. Yeah, we're not telling you to cheat.
Youngsters, don't cheat. The only cheat you should be doing is taking the UConn Huskies tonight at minus 6.5, because that's cheating. 11 straight covers and wins in the NCAA tournament. We got some news in college basketball, or other than UConn in the national championship game. John Calipari is going to Arkansas. He is leaving Kentucky. He really hasn't done a lot in Kentucky the last few years, been knocked out of the tournament very early, but he is going to Arkansas. So Grant, we have not different opinions. When you read the CBS story on it, it kind of changed my opinion a little bit, but I was more in the mind frame that he doesn't want to be at Kentucky. There's some problem with Kentucky and he's sick of Kentucky, basically. So what do you take from it?
Yeah. And just to be clear, I don't believe this is 100% confirmed. Well, it's confirmed he wants to leave and the offer is out there. I don't believe it's been finalized yet. By the time you're hearing this, maybe it has been. But according to a CBS Sports insider, Calipari has been wanting out since February, which, when they say since February, it wasn't that long ago. That was a month and a week. But I guess their point is it's not a new revelation. Supposedly, he even fielded some interest in the Ohio State job when that job became available. But ultimately, does look like he will be on his way to Arkansas. This is a very big deal for Arkansas because they have been competitive. When they had Moses Moody and company and Jalen Williams, they were able to make some runs in the tournament, but they've never been a real threat to win the SEC in the last couple of years or so, or to make the Final Four or anything like that. And so did they make the Final Four with that Arkansas team? I don't know. The point being, they're not a real perennial threat. And but anyway, Calipari going there looks like he's going to be making about $7.5 to $8 million. Supposedly, he has an NIL budget of $5 million per year. He will be allowed to bring all of his incoming Kentucky freshmen with him. So they're basically giving him, not a blank check, but a pretty big number on that check and saying, hey, go do what you want, bring your freshmen, bring your guys, and you just set up shop here, and it's going to be day 1, but it's going to feel like year 10. Like you're going to be as established as you want. We're just going to get out of your way and let you run the show.
Definitely. Well, that was the team that St. Peter's beat in the first round.
Yes, it was. They were the 2 seed. Yeah.
So it's all kind of been downhill from a NCAA tournament perspective. Like they've had success, but they haven't had Kentucky success. They haven't been in the Final Four since 2015. But for Cal to leave, it kind of just shows me that it's not about the money, because if we want to get fired, he had a $33 million buyout at Kentucky. He could have coached at Kentucky, I think, as long as he wanted, unless they would pull like a Texas A&M football situation where the boosters come in and just write a $33 million check for him to leave. But I think this just comes down to winning. He still wants to win. He's still got that competitive fire, and he thinks he can do it at Arkansas. It's interesting staying in the conference. That's going to make it very fun when he returns to Kentucky and all that. But yeah, I mean, good move for him if he's got a big NIL budget. It would be interesting to say too, like kind of like salary cap numbers, like what is the NIL budget for every single school? Because like having 5 million come right out, it's crazy the times we're in, like seeing an article that says he has a $5 million blank NIL budget. He can spend it however he wants to. Like this is only a couple years into, a few years into NIL, I should say. And that's already coming out in articles. So eventually we're going to see this, like you can go to, MLB or NBA and see how much teams are spending every single year on what player and all their contracts. Eventually we're going to be able to see that, I think, in a more easier database than just like an NIL website.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. I mean, it's funny. We were talking about, I don't want to say who, but there was a player at Virginia Tech, my former school, which supposedly was going to cost about $250,000 to keep him. And the consensus was, that's crazy. Why would he pay a guy this much? And then you've got Calipari here with $5 million for a payroll, and that's what it is. It's a payroll. It's a budget. We are living in a world where we no longer have recruiting. We have free agency, and it just is what it is. We really do need some sort of regulation, some sort of salary cap, because again, like we are just paying these players salary, and I'm all for players getting paid, but this is not to rehash the whole NIL argument, but this isn't, I don't think, what it was intended to be. But yeah, Calipari going there. By the way, I did want to look it up because I wanted to give Arkansas their credit where it was due. They made the Elite Eight in 21 and 22, but they did not make the Final Four, like I said. Ultimately, they are bringing Calipari in to kind of get them over the line there, because that's what you do when you've got a John Calipari on your team. Ultimately, I think it is going to be a good deal for him because he does get to start somewhere new, somewhere fresh. And to your point, I don't want to say he's flamed out, but he has consistently disappointed over the last half decade or so at Kentucky. Now it's a blank slate. And, I think it'll be fun for him. It'll be a fun new challenge. Everybody needs new challenges in their career.
You can't lose to Oakland and St. Peter's in the same like recent stretch and say that he's happy there. Like he needs to go. It's kind of just going to tarnish his reputation at this point. One thing, moving in this NIL discussion, I know we're not going to do it today, but one thing that does need to change, international athletes need to be able to make money. Like
Agreed.
Zach Edey is not able to profit. That's such a big issue because if we're trying to give these guys the bag for 4 years, a lot of the good athletes are international, especially in a lot of other sports too, where they're mainly like international born sports. Not saying those athletes are going to get the bag like Zach Edey, but Canada should be able to get the bag. It's not that far away.
There, so the point guard, former point guard, she transferred to Kentucky, but the former point guard of Virginia Tech, Georgia Amore, she's from Australia. And there was some event where I don't know if she went on her own or if Virginia Tech went there in the preseason or something, but somehow in the middle of the year, she ended up back in Australia. And I remember her putting out a bunch of stuff promoting, NIL deals, et cetera, because she was there. But as soon as she comes back to America and she's one of like the top 4 or 5 guards in all of college basketball, projected to be a first-round WNBA draft pick, she can't make any money. And to your point, it doesn't make sense. If we're going to have it to where NIL is literally just basically unregulated and we've got money running wild, then we've got to let these international students get paid.
Yeah, totally agree. So Cailin Clark comes up short, turns the ball over a little too much down the stretch, asked to do a lot, asked to do too much because the team around her is not that good. Gabby Marshall, you got to take a shot, girl. You got to take a shot. The other girl, what was the other girl's name? Number 20.
Kate Martin.
Kate Martin. Oh my, you're an embarrassment. You can't make a layup. And then you act like you're good and you act like you're getting fouled and you're not. South Carolina, much better team, obviously. 100% much better team than Iowa in every phase of the game. Iowa is based on can Cailin Clark make 3-pointers or not. But just a tough showing for the Iowa Hawkeyes down the stretch in that game yesterday. Grant, what'd you see from it?
Yeah, it's funny because Cailin Clark had 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and you want to blame her for their loss. Not you, but just general you.
I don't want to blame her.
Huh?
I don't want to blame her. No, I know you're doing. She turned the ball over a little too
No,
much.
I said not you, like a general you. Just
I know.
you would think you blame her because she didn't deliver late down the stretch. She had 18 points in the first quarter, 12 in the next 3 quarters. So your instinct would be to say, okay, well, the star player didn't get it done. It's a little bit true, but these teams were just so unevenly matched. South Carolina over the last 3 years as a program, South Carolina has 109 wins and 3 losses. Okay. And they've had some great players. Aaliyah Boston was the number 1 pick in the draft last year. Camila Cardoso, I believe, is projected to be the 6th or 7th pick. Actually, no, I think she's number 4 in this mock draft. So they've had great players. They haven't had a Cailin Clark, a Paige Buchers, a Juju Watkins, someone like that. So you would say, well, Iowa's got the better player. They got to get the job done. It was 1-on-5. And even those other players, when Gabby Marshall did hit a 3, it was because Clark found her on an open shot. And then when it was, Hannah Stolke had some really good runs to the lane. She ended up scoring 11 points, but she probably left another 6 to 8 on the table because she was missing layups in transition, which were product of Clark finding her with passes, throw aheads. And so, South Carolina was the better team. They deserved to win. There's no doubt about it. It's sad that Clark didn't get a national championship because of how much she has done for women's basketball and women's college basketball in particular. But ultimately, this was not rigged or anything like that. South Carolina was the much better team, similar to how I think what we're going to see play out with UConn. Purdue probably has the best player in the game with Zach Edey, and it might be close at the start, but the better team is going to win out. That's just how team sports play out. The better team wins.
Yeah. So this leads into a discussion a little bit. And Brianna Stewart brought it up about how to be the GOAT, you need to get a championship. And I'm kind of like, I'm not going to put Cailin Clark in, like, I'm more on Brianna Stewart's side. Like, is Brianna Stewart, from a playing perspective, like GOAT wise, Cailin Clark growing the game, 100% the GOAT of growing the game. But when I look at what some of these other players have did, I know it's a little different era when UConn was a lot more dominant because nobody else was really good around them. 3-4 teams were good. But like Brianna Stewart's, I think All-American multiple times. She won 4 national championships, like did a ton for the game too. Like, where do you put Cailin Clark in that conversation?
Yeah, it's funny. I would put her in a sort of, I want to take all levels of impact out of the game because from impact, she's like a Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, like how the NBA was going out of business until Magic and Bird entered the league, and then it became the thing, and then Jordan globalized it. Like Cailin Clark has had just as much of an impact on any level of basketball as probably some of those guys, especially as far as women's basketball. But just purely with what she did on the court, for me, it's like a Kevin Durant situation. She is so clearly better than everybody out there, but she just couldn't get it done. And even though Durant did win, that was with the Warriors and he couldn't do it on his own. Like, it's that sort of situation where you say, I'm not necessarily blaming her or calling her out for anything, but she just didn't get it done. And because she didn't, no, I can't say she's the best women's college basketball player ever. I can say she's the most skilled. I think she has the highest potential of any woman to ever play basketball going into her professional career, but I don't think she was the GOAT of women's college basketball.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think growing the game, definitely the GOAT. But like she needs to get better too in some, and I know we're critiquing her performance, but like she also had no team around her. So I'll be interested to see when she has a comparable team, a comprehensive team, a team that knows how. Like when Iowa brought with a minute left and they brought the young kids and the seniors on the floor that weren't playing. The future is not bright for Iowa women's basketball at all. These girls, terrible, absolutely terrible. It's amazing they were in this situation. So like, I know like Cailin Clark's game of shooting logo threes got them there, but there's also multiple times where she's pulling up, taking a logo 3 when she doesn't have to. And it's like, set your offense up a little bit and develop the game, like let the game come to you a little bit more. Like, so it'd be interesting to see when she gets to WNBA. She can't do that. That's not going to fly because you're going to get beat. Everyone's good.
There was one shot, I think, with 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes left in the game. I was down like 7, 8, 9 points or something, and she just jacked one. And it wasn't it wasn't that it was not open. I mean, she was being defended, but she created space. She got the shot off. If that happens in the first quarter, you don't call it a bad shot because she can make it. But just in that particular moment, it was like she had just gotten down the court, step back, yank. And it was very much like, if you hit that, okay, we are right back in this thing. But if you miss it, then South Carolina is going to dribble the ball for 30 seconds. Next time you get it, it's going to be a minute and a half on the clock. And now you're down 8 to 10 points if they make a shot. And it was the wrong move. And I can't blame her because, like we've said, nobody else out there was really trying to help her as far as scoring. Like, were they trying to rebound and stuff? Sure. But Iowa was just standing there waiting like, hey, Cailin, help us, go do something for us to score. So it is what it is. When she does get to the WNBA, the biggest transition for her is going to be having to play defense. She plays no defense as it is. Now, I'm not critiquing her with that, because when you are your team's only source of offense, well, hey, you can't play 40 minutes of top-level intensity on both ways. It's just not humanly possible no matter who you are. So she's been allowed to rest on defense because she is the team's whole offense. But like you said, when you get to the WNBA, even if she does have a big role on offense, there are going to be other capable players out there. So as a result, she won't be on the ball every possession on offense, so she's going to have to defend.
Yeah. My rock bottom this weekend watching women's basketball was when Paige Beckers had a wide open corner three.
Oh, yeah. Less than a minute left.
She hit the glass. Like, she hit the side of the backboard. You got to try to do that. You really got to try to do that. Yeah. That was bad.
I will say, though, shout out to Paige Beckers and Cailin Clark. That Final Four game was the most watched women's college basketball game ever until the national title game, the most watched women's college basketball game ever, the most watched college basketball game ever, the most watched basketball game ever. That just shows how far women's hoops has come. Shout out to Cailin Clark and all the other stars that have helped that happen. More people watch that than they watched any NBA Finals game, any World Series game last year. It's pretty remarkable what we have seen happen to the women's game. Now, looking ahead, as far as what's next for Cailin Clark and also just women's hoops in general, I saw something that I thought was really interesting, which was the Las Vegas Aces, who are the best team in the WNBA. They have an upcoming game next season against the Indiana Fever, who have the number 1 pick in the draft. The draft hasn't even happened yet, okay? And the Aces are looking to rent out an arena so for when they play the Fever, so that they can sit more fans there. They already have an arena. It's not like they don't have a place to play. They do, but they want to rent one out specifically so they can get more fans in seats so that they can watch Cailin Clark play. That already goes to show what her impact actually is.
Is it going to last?
It depends. She's got to produce.
She's got to produce. Yeah. Is it going to last?
And I think she will. I'm being 100% serious. I think she is already the most skilled women's basketball player ever, professional or collegiate. And, I don't want to be disrespectful to some of the other greats, the Sue Birds, the Diana Taurasi's, Brianna Stewart's, Lisa Leslie's, and in the modern game, the Ajay Wilsons and Sabrina Ionescu, all these players. I don't want to be disrespectful to them, but, Cailin is very much like Steph-like. When you watch Steph, he just does things that nobody else can do, nobody else would even think of doing. And we've seen the impact Steph has had on the men's game. Imagine if Cailin can be that player for the WNBA, where all of a sudden you've got a whole generation growing up saying, not only do I want to be like her, I want to play exactly like her. Her influence truly could be the biggest of any woman basketball player ever, any female basketball player.
I agree. I just need to see her do it with talent, facing talent. Like, she's done it against big time teams, obviously, in college basketball, but I need to see her do it where, like, women's basketball, for the most part, now South Carolina had like dominant players all over the floor, but like, you look at UConn the other night, you got Paige on the floor, who's good. Aaliyah Edwards was terrible the entire game. Like, Nika Mule was good. Like, you got two to three talented players on the floor, and you got 2 players that can't do anything. Not can't do it. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
You don't have 5 dominant players on the floor at all times. South Carolina did. So I need to see her do it in situations where Brianna Stewart is guarding her and she's trying to take a logo 3 in Brianna Stewart's face. And then I'll sit here and say, like, yes, But for now, like I still have my hesitations because I see a lot of flaws. I see the turnovers. I see the lack of defense. I see the threes, which are amazing and they're fun to watch. But are you going to be able to do that when you're asked to play defense and you're asked to go against elite level talent when there's 5 of those players on the floor?
Yep, 100%. Did you catch any of the Manning cast with Taurasi and Bird at all?
Nah, I was just watching the regular broadcast.
And man, it feels like we say this all the time, but in every sport, the older generations just get so jealous of the younger generations.
Were they jealous of her?
I mean, they weren't directly saying, Cailin Clark is overrated or stuff like that, but just when they were having a discussion about who's better, Caitlin or Paige Beckers, and Taurasi said no commentary, no thought, no one else just goes Paige. Next question, and like that's fine. Paige is phenomenal. You could probably make the argument she might be a little more all around of a better.
She probably
player
is, but the upside scoring wise, like Paige she's not explosive at all. Like when you look
to
at
act
Caitlin,
like it's not a discussion is just criminal. And then like she would throw little digs like, oh, Caitlin forgot to play defense again. And then, yeah, I would need to see her at the next level because she's not going to be able to play like this. When you're going against grown women, the best athletes in the world, it's not going to be this easy. It made me think of when LeBron was a senior in high school and they interviewed a bunch of the Cavs players and they said, hey, how do you feel about having like the best basketball prospect ever coming to your team? And I remember one of them, I think it was it Darius Miles? I just remember somebody said, well, I mean, he's still a kid. He's got to see how grown men get it done. He can hop on our coattails, ride along if he enjoy the ride if he wants to. Like stuff like come on. Like she's better. Listen, Diana Taurasi, phenomenal basketball player. Cailin Clark is better than you were when you were her age, okay? Why are you not excited? She is going to bring more people into the stands to watch you play. She is going to help you get more money in the whole league. I just don't understand. But it happens in every sport. The older generation always jealous of the younger generation.
Well, you don't want to say something like in not their defense, because I could also sit here and make the case that Paige is like slightly better all around than Cailin Clark. I'm not going to do that because I don't think it's true. Like I would probably rather have Cailin Clark because she can score. Like I can't trust Paige. Paige hit the freaking side of the backboard in a clutch situation. I wrote her off right there. But like these girls were very talented when they were in college. They didn't get a lot of viewership. They didn't get a lot of respect. Like even the WNBA. I think the WNBA is going to change a lot now with Cailin Clark, at least for a couple years. If she doesn't deliver, obviously it's not going to take off as much. But these girls play in WNBA. They're good. Not as many people are watching, right? Like they've kind of been part of like the fight for viewership and all that. So they're seeing one person change the game. It's same thing with like all these other athletes. Well, if I was like, if I like NIL, like Johnny Manziel made a ton of money under the rug, but like if he was in the NIL era, he would have made 10 times the amount of money. Right. So it's just different eras and jealousy of not getting the same exposure and viewership and all that.
Yeah, it is what it is. But, again, shout out to Caitlin for what she did for women's college basketball is pretty amazing. And even though she's leaving, they're in good hands. Juju Watkins is a great player. And I think also you're just generally seeing, like you were mentioning earlier, when UConn and Gino Auriemma were going on those runs, granted, they did just get to the Final Four, but like when they were winning the national title every year, it was just so not competitive. They were like 1, 2, 3.
Notre Dame and Tennessee. It was Notre Dame, Tennessee, UConn.
Yeah, it just wasn't close. Back to the Pat Summitt days and everybody. Now there's real talent. There is a real spread of talent, and I think the women lagged behind the men a little bit because that men's skill revolution. That a lot of the NBA and men's college basketball used to just be athleticism. The skill is really developed. I think there was a little bit of a lag between the women and the men doing that, but I think you are seeing it come for the women. So hopefully the next 5 years or so of the women's game are, the best ones we've seen yet.
Oh, 100%. Because the UConn era, I didn't watch the game the same way I watched the game. So like when UConn was winning all those national championships, it would be on the background. I was a kid, but like just seeing what we see now where like the top teams have, three good play. I can't keep comparable. I can't keep saying that word this far, but like where they got 3 really good players and 2 that are a little lagging behind. And then like you're starting to just see more and more talent in the game. Where back in the day, like I would hate to see what an 8 seed looked like in the tournament when UConn was in 2010 beating everybody up.
Yeah. Yeah. So. It just wasn't close. Like, and, again, it's funny because South Carolina did just go undefeated, but you thought there was a chance South Carolina was going to lose to Iowa. I mean, they lost to them last year, and who knows if they would have beaten LSU. With UConn, they're winning every year. With Tennessee and Pat Summitt, they're winning every year. You don't have that anymore, and it's good.
Yeah, it's good for the game. Anyways, Grant, that was the first edition of Ride the Line.
First edition part 2.
First edition part 2 of Ride the Line. Yeah, we got to figure out. It's still episode, like, we're getting up there. We're almost 200, I think. Are we over 200?
I don't know. I don't know where we are, but it's the first one on the new channel, and that's what matters.
It was a good time. Anyways, guys, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, share, do it all, comment. Let's get this channel to the moon here. And Grant, you can take us out of here.
That's going to do it for Ride the Line, guys. Before you get on out of here, drop some comments. Let us know who is going to win the national championship for the men. Yeah, you got Purdue, and then you got UConn. Like the video if you did enjoy. Subscribe to the channel, and we will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.